And my answer is no, not after. During teaching, with teaching, in curriculum, in pedagogy, in the projects you do, in the research that you ask your students and faculty to undertake. That's where you bring in your societal connection. That's where you bring in the question about locating your educational work in the society that surrounds us. So it is in the core business of our work as a university that we must find a way to ask the question of social relevance and social contribution through our pedagogy, our curriculum, our courses, our teachers, our research, our publications, our dissemination of research, all those functions that we perform. I was giving an example earlier that you could have some of your students do a project for a woman Sarpanch leader in a nearby village. And the report of that project, when it is presented to your faculty, the Sarpanch herself can be one of those who provide feedback and do your assessment. Look at the value addition that you bring to the work of that woman Sarpanch, but look at the long-term advantage of bridging the divide. In recent years, our higher education institutions, our universities are being viewed as ivory towers. What do we mean by ivory tower? ये हमसे बहुत दूर हैं. There is no connection between us and them. And that divide needs to be bridged. The fundamental philosophy for bridging that divide is to treat life and learning in an interconnected manner. Lifelong learning, life-wide learning, life-deep learning, combining the formal, the non-formal and the informal, and examining the value, the relevance of what we do in our educational institutions for the society around us. About 3 years ago, in a conversation on conflict, etc., these people don't know, they are not educated. The conversation bothered me. I came back and I examined a few statistics, only to discover that it is not the illiterate tribal who is causing destruction of our environment. It's not the illiterate woman doing around collecting some firewood for the chula who is causing deforestation. It turns out that those of us who have bought our mindset into the new world, who treat all our natural resources as items of consumption, it's us. It's the formally educated lot which are causing environmental destruction. So if environment education has to be given, it's not to those illiterate tribals. Environment education is to be given to you and me. We are the ones who are environmentally uneducated. And the second statistic I discovered is that the highest number of dowry deaths, female feticides, and domestic violence cases take place among those who are highly educated. They take place in families where both men and women have postgraduate degrees. And therefore it posed a question to me that what is this education that we are getting? It once again reminded me of the disconnect between life and learning. And unless we change that, unless we make the question of growing rates of female feticides in highly educated families as a subject matter of study, a subject matter of reflection, a subject matter of diagnosis, as Professor Bavalankar was saying about Dr. Shroff's work. Unless we do that as part of our learning process, we will not be able to bridge this disconnect. So I hope that those of you who formally consider yourself as a teacher would try to look at your curriculum, your pedagogy, the way you combine various aspects of learning more rigorously. But those of you who don't consider yourself as a teacher would at least consider yourself as a learner and would be willing to not only engage in your own lifelong learning, but ask yourself how many others' lifelong learning you have been supporting. Because my guess is that in addition to your immediate family and your colleagues in your workplace, there are many others who are being influenced by each one of us. And if that influence can be in enabling them to think about their place in society, their place in the global world, to think about what is it that they have learned, then we are all educators. We are all teachers. Not all of us, though, will get a degree from Clorox Teachers University. Thank you very much. Many of you may have ideas, questions, comments as well, and it would be a pity if I didn't get a chance to hear them. So I'm happy if you think we have some time, and if you can help me facilitate that. You are an excellent facilitator too, so while I make notes, you can sort of.
Dr. Tandon, this was a very inspiring talk, very motivating. So I'd like your opinion on the need for a paradigm shift from a teacher-centric pedagogy to a learner-centric andragogy. If you have any thoughts on this. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I am Professor Mulia. There is no question of educating illiterate people, but emphasize to educating literate people. What is the meaning?
Now, let me give you my observation. I think 2/3 of the audience is women, and roughly 2/3 would be below the age of 25. In which case, can we have a representative sample of comments and questions?
Hi, good evening, sir. My question is that when we used to study, I remember we used to have a subject called as value education. And as educators today, we are so busy completing curriculums that we don't have time to teach value education in classroom. We're busy preparing the students for the competitive world. What is your opinion about that?
Good evening, sir. Thank you for this wonderful lecture. You told about formal education and informal education. So why don't we include informal education in formal education? What are the reasons lacking behind?
Looking for the representative sample.
We're still waiting for the
Yeah.
woman under 25.
Even I am unaware, like you are saying, that there are certain segments who are very much very skilled. Like if I can get in touch with such people, I could obviously be able to impart it further to my children. Like weaving or maybe any basic skill that I would like to learn, life skill, other than the formal education. Can you just provide us certain avenues where we can get educated about them and then subsequently maybe share it? If those people who already have the formal means who don't have degrees cannot come to the school, at least we can do some value at our end.
Let me respond to a few of these, and then feel free to respond too, Pooja. First of all, the learning can be in the formal structure, which is like a classroom. A non-formal is typically, you send people to do a field project, or they do some observation, they do some actual kind of a thing. Sometimes seminars, workshops. I don't know if any of you will get credit, for example, listening to Dr. Rajesh Tandon this evening. But hopefully some of you will learn something. Huh? And the informal actually is life, rest of life. So when you go home from here, you'll be learning something. When you hang around with the rest of your family or friends, there'll be something going on that you will learn from. Now obviously, experience on its own does not become learning. Experiential learning theory suggests that experience is a base for learning, but unless you reflect on it, unless you generalize from it, it will not remain a learning. Okay, so the difficulty in today's sort of way of looking at education is that it tries to combine, it says we only deal with the formal, at best non-formal, but informal is not included. So it is a challenge. For example, if you are running a high school and some of the students come from whose parents did not go to high school. So they're coming from a context which is very different. And therefore, they will go back to that same context after the class is over. And what they do there and what they learn there and how they behave there is not something that is taken care of or dealt with or even explored in the classroom. So it creates a disconnect. And it also tends to undervalue what is not learned in the classroom. And that is why we are all chasing degrees as opposed to learning. Because degree is what classroom offers, what school offers, what college offers. Learning can happen in life too, but the disconnect tends to undermine that, undervalue that, and only value that which happens in a formal, structured classroom. So that is the challenge. It is not easy, but if we are sensitive to it, we can find a way. It does not mean you abandon the formal. That's not what I am saying. It does not mean that you that everything that happens in the informal will automatically become learning. But if we can create the capacity, many of you may know about Education for All goals, and UNESCO's program of EFA, Education for All as it is called, they produce a sort of an annual monitoring report on some aspect. The last one was in fall of 2012, and that focused on youth and skills. Now what they are saying is very interesting. It's global, so it applies to many contexts, not just India. What they're saying is that there are three sets of skills And it's like a pyramid of skills. Now, when you and I think of skill, we may think about how to be a plumber, how to be a machinist, how to be an electrician, how to be a carpenter, how to be a driver, those kinds of. But what this global monitoring report is saying is that you have some